John Bailey, the president of the Academy, said it was a defining moment. What do you think it defined?
I think it defined the career of the guy who was in charge of the envelopes. I don't know what else it defined, but definitely defined that.
Now you're going to nod to it and move on, I suspect, right?
We won't dwell on it. You know, it's something that it was interesting when it happened. It's not necessarily interesting after the fact.
You said to Ellen, it's been a weird year with a lot of strange things happening.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with that?
I just, you know, I look for balance. I try to step back and not get too focused on the individual jokes and the individual bits. Step back and look at the whole show and see, okay, what do we have planned that other people are doing? What isn't being mentioned? Of course, you don't know what the winners are going to say. So you do have to change as the show goes just to make sure that there's some kind of, I don't know if you can even say balance, but just something that feels right.
Do you have writers with you? When's the last joke written?
Well, we write jokes and come up with jokes throughout the whole show. So yeah, they're backstage with me. We have a little table. There are like 12 of us around a 4-person table. It's very cramped, and everyone's dressed up, which is weird. There's no reason for the writers to be dressed up, but everyone has to be dressed up. So you get these women, you know, writing jokes in these full gowns that don't even fit on the seats. It's kind of, my wife this year, she's, you know what? I'm just wearing a regular dress and not some big Oscar thing. I'm not Halle Berry. I'm there to write jokes.
Because she's back there helping you, right?
My wife, yes, is helping me.
Thousands of jokes down to 30, you say. How do you decide what makes the cut?
It might be 40. I just decide. You know what I do? I run it by people. I ask friends who are comedians because it's hard to run it just by the writer's room because we get tired of the jokes. Everybody's got a stake. If they wrote a joke, they're going to laugh a little harder at that joke. And I want to get some kind of sense of how the audience is going to react. So like we had a table read yesterday, and I went through some of my jokes just to see, for me, more than anything, I want to see which jokes they really like rather than which jokes they don't like, because I do have so many jokes to choose from. So and it's hard, you know, you can't, until you're in front of the audience, you really don't know for sure how they're going to react. You just have to have confidence in the material, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, you know, I don't know.
On to the next one.
On to a game show.
What did you learn last year?
Last year, most of the stuff I learned was not so interesting, and they're just little things that you pick up along the way, but I learned, as I learn every year, and sometimes I relearn, you have to keep it loose, you have to be, especially when the envelope thing happened, you just kind of have to be ready to ditch the plan and go with the flow, and that's, I think, underrated part of the show. I mean, you see so many situations on television where people obliviously stick to the script when something has happened right before that, or you know, it is happening while it's happening, and I just don't ever want to be that guy.
No risk for that. It occurred to me, and I'm not being disrespectful, but isn't it just kind of, after this seminal moment last year, anything else, is it coasting downhill for you?
Career-wise, is it a coast downhill?
No, in terms of coasting, in terms of how hard could it be after you face the ultimate challenge?
Yeah, I guess the Oscars for a comedian, it is kind of like the Super Bowl. I mean, not a necessarily great analogy, but there's nothing audience-wise that's bigger than this, as far as I know. I guess, no, I mean, you know, Soul Train Awards, maybe that.
Where I was going with it is, once you've had a mistake like that on live TV, does it up your confidence level that no matter what happens, you're going to be able to do it?
Yeah, I mean, when something like that happens and you look back and you go, oh, it came out fine, you realize, like, it's just a TV show. It's not, no one's life is in danger. The only time anyone's life was in danger was during rehearsal that day when the stage came crashing to the ground. That was actually the bigger story than the envelope, but it wasn't on TV.
So
maybe that'll happen this year.
Let's talk a little bit about the balance and the specific things. You know, the producers are determined to emphasize the glitz and glamour. You've got certain responsibilities. Give us your best thinking on how you're going to balance all that's happening in this industry, in this country right now, with the need to entertain that evening.
Well, I don't necessarily feel like I have to cover every base. You know, I mean, primarily I'm there to be funny and to keep the show moving, explain the elements as they happen. So I do think it makes sense to talk about current events, to talk about the social issues that we're facing, but really 85% of my job is to be funny. So that's where I'll be primarily focused.
Are there some topics that you just say, I can't find the funny?
Yeah, there always are topics. I mean, I can't think of one specifically right now, but the biggest challenge is when you have to make jokes about a point of reference people don't have. So if people haven't seen a movie, it makes it hard to make a joke about that movie. You know, you're stuck to who the stars of the movie are, maybe the title of the movie is something. So you really, I made a joke last year about Moonlight, which if you saw the movie, you would get the joke. The joke was the happy ending was in the middle, but I don't think most of the audience had seen the movie. So, and then they voted for it for Best Picture.
So that's kind of the, that's it. You have to balance the room with the public, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's as big a mystery to me as it is anybody. And the truth is, at the end of it, some people will say that was good, some people will say that was terrible, some people will say that was great, some people will say, you know, and everybody's got their own line of thinking on this stuff. Everybody has their own biases. You know, they want, like, some people will be upset if I make fun of the president. Some people want me to do nothing but make fun of the president. I mean, that I find a lot with the people around here, like, oh, you should do it. It's like, all right, let's see, it's not, this is not the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you know.
Does everybody have an opinion in this theater and anxious to share it with you?
Not everyone is anxious. Everyone in my life has an opinion and is anxious to share it with me. So, and I'm grateful that the people in my life in general tend to be funny people, but I do get, sometimes I get unwanted input.
How do you keep clear and keep a through line through it all?
You just have to concentrate. And when I was a kid, I would sit at my desk and I'd draw, and I would have the black and white television on while I was drawing. And I really feel like that's how I was able to, I have whatever the opposite of ADD is. I can really lock in. People can be screaming around me. Two TVs can be on. I'll just be right there on my computer typing away. And I'm grateful for that. I'm able to apply that tunnel vision to hosting a show, which is, you know, I don't even know, the show's 11 hours long. So it's hard to maintain your concentration for that kind of a time period, but luckily I can.
Finally, a nice woman, Kelly Koopman's, basically got her contract renewal because I asked you about Seattle last year. And so she's going for #2. Did you, when you were in Seattle, did you have an affinity with the people there, and do you understand why you're so popular there now?
I loved living in Seattle. It's probably my favorite place I ever lived. Unfortunately, I was fired almost immediately. I lived there for 10 months, and they kicked me right out. But I had such a great thing. I worked at a radio station, KZOK. I did the morning show. And after work, like 10:30 in the morning, we'd go to the Pike Place Market. We'd go to this place called the Athenian Inn. We'd have salmon and chips. It was, you know, fried but fish. But you don't usually get salmon. That's only available in the Northwest. And I must have put on 30 pounds in that 10 months. And, oh, it was happy hour. It was before noon happy hour that we celebrated each day.
Thank you, Jimmy.